that's kind of a lot. But I have not found something to watch yet. We're not going to be streaming for super long because I have not been very good with time management here lately. But it's fine. We're going to get it together eventually. I'm working on my agenda, and I'm hoping once I get it together a little bit more, it'll help me with my time management. Although I would have started streaming sooner, but my computer randomly turned off when I was ready to start streaming, so love that. Sorry, I have my bowl from dinner. Okay. Let me pull up Google Chrome. Cause like I said, everything just turned the fuck off for no reason a minute ago. I'm almost done with my first crocheted sweater too, so I'm really excited about that. I would have had more time to do stuff today, to be fair, but my schedule was switched at the last minute. By the last minute, I mean last night. I should definitely do a mask on my hands. I need to find, actually first let me find a piece of paper because I need to make a to-do list. This will work while I'm sitting here, or while we're playing and shit talking whatever is going on, because I honestly have not really been paying attention super closely to what's been going on in the news. I did hear, I didn't see much about it. I did hear there was a school shooting here in Nashville, in North Nashville, which is super scary because I live in Nashville. I don't want to say what part of Nashville I live in, because I mean there's a lot of people here, but Nashville's kind of like a smaller major city. It's not really like that big. Oh god. Okay. But yeah, like I said, we're not going to be streaming for super long. I also have a headache. But let me see. I think I have work at 6 o'clock in the morning, which means I have to at least get up at 5. Thankfully though, when I got home, nobody else that drives was here, so I got the really good parking spot. Okay, I got the really good parking spot at my house, so that way I can turn the light on in the morning, run outside, crank my car, run back inside, let it heat up, because it's probably gonna be freezing. Was I looking up again? Oh, my schedule. I want to make sure that's what time I work tomorrow, but let's go to the news. Let's see what's going on. Maybe we can look at what happened yesterday, but that's also super fucking depressing. Not even low key, high key. Oh my god. I very much have been trying to not think about all of the shit Trump has been doing since the inauguration or whatever. Okay, I guess we'll watch. We can start with this. Oh wait, it was this one, and then we can go to this one. So let me make sure. Okay.
What would they want to know?
Okay. Okay, let me get my life together. How do I have this set up again? What the fuck? This is a little too complicated. Eventually, I need to get one more screen because the way I have this set up, it's just not working. Or maybe I need to look at setting it up a different way. But I definitely do want a vertical screen at some point. But I need to be going to Goodwill a little bit more. But I have to do other things first. Let's see. Oh, okay, yes. This is exactly what I want. Is this live right now? No.
Genealogy is our thing.
I'm so confused.
Plus is all the things. 23andMe,
Okay, we'll see.
plus
Let me
distinct
turn the
connections,
music off.
plus ancient insights, plus the records to prove it.
This is
Plus
also
why
not
some
the
meds
family
hit
we're gonna be
different.
playing
Plus,
with because
wait,
we're
you're
done.
related to Beethoven? Plus, you're gonna
I'm
need more
pretty
wall
sure.
space for that family tree. Plus,
Oh,
knowing
wait.
you're predisposed to diabetes.
No, we're not.
Plus, a plan to get after it. Plus,
we're not. I
heart
thought
that
we were
beats
done.
and beats and drops
Because
the
it's
beat.
been a while since I've played
Get
The
Plus
Sims.
today
We're still
at
decorating.
23andMe.com.
We still got to do the dining room. I think I was gonna do over here. We still need to finish decorating the parents' room.
Are you older than 18?
And
We're looking
per
for motivated
usual,
people to take
the
cybersecurity
living room.
classes 100%
I mean, not the living
online.
room. The
You can earn your
kitchen
degree
needs
from the
trash
comfort
cans,
of your
like,
own home. No
always
SAT or
forget
ACT
to
scores
add the trash
required,
cans.
and there's
So let's go ahead and
financial
put our
assistance to
sheets
those who
in.
qualify. If you're looking to kickstart your educational journey, click below and learn more about earning your degree online.
True. BB.move.
They said that,
Objects.
I asked them how many of the pumps, how many of the hydrants were working, and it was a, large percentage of them were not working at all. They had no water, and the ones that did have water didn't have a lot of pressure. And one of the things that was missing, many of you have sprinklers over your living room and your bathroom and your kitchen. I mean, if those sprinklers worked with some pressure, you would have had a much different outcome. So we're going to work on that. I think in terms of that, Rick Grinnell would be good, or Rick, you'll head up a group of people that would recommend a few people to me, maybe a commission, set up a commission. I like it because we're talking about a lot of money. The other one is Kelly Loeffler is now the head of small business, and small business is big
I guess
business.
this is
It's
live.
it's actually one of the biggest banks in the world. We call it the Small Business Administration, and she's a cabinet member, full cabinet member. She's fantastic. Her husband is the head of the New York Stock Exchange, so they know something about money and other exchanges, actually. Fantastic people. And she wants to come here almost immediately after she gets approved. She wants to come here and open up small business to the area because they have a lot of money. I always say the small business is actually a very big business when you add it all up. And she's going to come here, and it's a very important thing. I want to thank also the First Lady, because she wanted to come here. She wanted to be here. She has so many friends, and she also wanted to see North Carolina because that was another disaster that was so bad, so different, but so bad. And she just wanted to go there. We said we're going to stop at one, and then we're going to the other. In many respects, it was a depressing day, but in many respects, it was a beautiful day because the spirit is so incredible. North Carolina and here. Very, very similar situation.
Does anybody else think it's weird that here lately, Melania, or the First Lady, whatever, she's been wearing a lot of hats that's covering like half of her face. I mean, I'm not a conspiracy type of person. I'm not saying it's not her. I'm just saying it's weird. It's really
so
weird. She's
different
wearing
and
a
yet
lot
so
of like
similar, actually.
big hats.
And
that's,
so I
like,
just thought it was very nice. You wanted to be here, and we appreciate that.
it's a little funny. Let's
Jay?
go ahead and turn the grid off. And we definitely need to get like mainly decorations, but let's go ahead and do the dining room area.
Is that local? You gotta do. You gotta.
Darker wood in here.
I don't want to be the only one to give you permits like in one day, and then I find out that the cities, the towns, and the state is not going to give you permits. And the problem with permits, it only takes one. Yeah. You might need 7 different permits. You shouldn't have any at this point. You should just let them build. And you're only as good as the weakest one. So if you have one that's going to hold you up, but the others are going to give it to you in 24 hours, it's not going to help you very much. So they have to work on that. It's what everybody said.
Well, and let me just tell you that we are going to do everything we can, slashing regulations, expediting everything so that people can begin the process right away. We have the Disaster Recovery Center on Pico and Westwood. We have building and safety there. People are already contacting the local agencies. We're bringing our city departments together so
Where's
that
the
people don't get caught
matching?
in the loop of
I
going
need
from
this
one room
to
to
be
the next.
extended.
We
I
want
think
them
there is a
all to
mod
be
for
in the
that,
same
too.
room so
'Cause I
that
have
you
the more
can
columns
get
mod.
busy rebuilding ASAP. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And we will clear the lots, absolutely, in the city and in the county. We are working together. Both levels of government are working
Filter
in
it by
unity.
packs.
Yes.
6 months is no good.
And the number one thing that we are going to do immediately, and you will see this happen, is to clear out the debris. And you know, we're concerned right now over the weekend because of the potential rain, but we are going to move as fast as we can, but we want you to be safe, and we want you to be back in your homes immediately.
But the people are willing to clean out their own debris. It doesn't
Yes,
cost a lot.
and they can,
You
and
should
they are
let them
able
do
to-
it because
No,
by the
they
time you
can do
hire
that.
contractors, it's
Right.
going to be 2 years.
If a family...
People are willing
want-
to get a dumpster and do it themselves and clean it out.
And they can
There's
do
not that much left. It's all incinerated.
That's right.
And, you know, it's just going to take a long time if you do. You can do some of
He
it. but
said
a
it's
lot
not
of
even
these
that
people, I know
much.
that guy
It's
right
all
there
been,
that's
it's
talking.
all burnt.
I know my
It's all
people.
gone.
You'll be on that thing tonight,
What the
throwing the
fuck?
stuff away, and your
Why
site
did
will
he
be,
say it
it'll
like
look
that?
perfect within 24
I mean, it
hours,
is
and that's
Trump.
what he wants to do. He
I
doesn't
don't
want
know
to
why
wait around
anybody
for
is-
7
I don't
months
know why I'm
till the
surprised
city
why he
hires some
says anything
demolition
the way he
contract.
says it.
That's going to
Individuals
charge him
want to build-
$25,000 to do his lot. I think you have emergency powers just like I do, and I'm exercising my emergency powers. You have to exercise them also.
I did exercise them.
Because I looked,
signed
I
an
mean, you have a
emergency
very powerful
declaration.
emergency power, and you
Yes.
can do everything within 24 hours.
Yes. And if individuals want to clear out their property, they can.
Damn.
Well, yes, but you know that you will be able to go back soon.
Mr. President.
We think within a week.
That's a long time, a week. I'll be honest. To me, everyone's standing in front of their house. They want to go to work, and they're not allowed to do it.
And the most
a
important
week
thing
is
is
a
for
long
people to
time.
be safe.
They're safe. They're
Exactly.
safe. You know what? They're not safe. They're not safe now. They're going to be much safer. A week is actually a long time, the way I look at it. I watched hundreds of people standing in front of their lots, and they're not allowed to go in. It's all burned. It's gone. It's done. Nothing's going to happen to it. It's not going to burn anymore. There's nothing to burn. There's almost nothing to burn. And they want to go in. The people are all over the place. They're standing, and I say, why aren't you going in? We're trying to get a permit. And the permit's going to take them, everybody said 18 months. You said 18 months. You said 18 months. And that was last night.
On that,
What the hell?
right.
Mr. President, we're going to be together next week, and during the interim, many of us are involved in, and Tom McClintock, who you know has been an expert on this for years,
That's right.
we are going to be putting conditions on the money that do two things. Require that it be done timely and affordable.
Damn it.
And then secondly, that we protect
Okay,
those
okay,
who will come
okay.
afterwards. As we speak, there are 6,000 acres burning in my district on the
Okay.
Mexican border.
I mean, I need
there
to
will
move a
be
couple
more fires
things around,
until
like,
we
I have to redo
include
this
in
'cause
any
I actually
disaster
think
relief
I want it right here so
items
we can
which
have,
will
like,
prevent it or at least
little
mitigate it
fence
from
that has
happening
to be
again.
like-
So you're going to see us
Maybe I'll
proposing
size it down
both of those.
too.
Like water. Little things
gonna
like
do
water.
that for
You know, the party of common sense. See,
Oh,
we're the party of common sense. You're not,
That's not
in
what
all
I meant
fairness.
to do.
Yes, sir.
We like water to put out fires.
Oh,
It's really
is it
quite
so
efficient.
close
All right.
Thank you,
Sure.
Mr.
to,
President.
okay.
Mr. President,
Oh, that's,
I'm Jay
I
Obernolte. My
thought-
district is just a bit
oh.
east of here.
Yep.
And you were
Well,
talking
then
about
what
the
the
need to better manage our forests and our wildlands to
Because-
prevent
okay,
this from
okay.
happening again.
Maybe we can
And you
have
were
it like-
so right
Ooh,
about
okay,
that.
that works better.
Just
If we
last
just
year,
have it
a couple months
turned
ago in
at a
October, they
slightly
put out a
different
fire, the line
angle,
fire
and
in
then
my
we'll-
district
yep, there's
was
the-
over twice as big as the Palisades
Something
fire.
else that's-
And they put it out less than a mile from my house. in an area where we had done thinning, and they stopped the fire, Mr. President, on a fire break that we had built a couple of years ago. Right. We have an area just on the other side of my community that hasn't been thinned in decades because it's being held up by a lawsuit from an environmental group that says we're going to reduce habitat. Mr. President, we need to, in addition to getting resources and boots on the ground to do this treatment, we need to reform our legal system to prevent these lawsuits from tying up these projects for years and years and years.
We're not even close to.
And not to say that the merit shouldn't be heard, but we need to hear them and we need to move on, resolve them.
Is this a state group?
That's also
State
not
or
where that
federal
stuff is
group?
going to go.
This is a local group, actually, Mr. President, but they have help from the state.
They use the environment to make themselves feel good, and they're destroying our country. And you've got to, at some point, you've got to put your foot down. I know exactly what you're talking. You have local and state groups, and you have federal groups too. And you got to fight them the right way, because you'll never, even if the mayor gives, you're going to have a local group come in and sue. You're not allowed to go on your property. They're going to talk about asbestos and every other thing. They want to go on their property, and they want to clean out their property. And you cannot let anything get in their way. And you'll have this place built up quickly, beautiful. It'll be more beautiful than before. And I would do one other thing. I'd give them a 10%, 15% bonus on their house, because they went through hell. And they should be allowed to build a little bit, give them a little bit lot line bonus, give them a bonus on size, maybe a little bonus on height. They went through hell.
It works.
You know, some of them had houses where they were restricted. They have to have an 8-foot ceiling. You let them have a 10-foot ceiling. Let them build a nice house, a nicer house than they had before. But I would give them a 10 or a 15% bonus on their plans, and I think it would be very well received, because they'll be able to build a little bit nicer house. Do you like that idea, by the way? They deserve it, because you know what? It's not their fault that this fire took place. This fire took place, could have been stopped. It's not their fault. It's not the homeowner's fault.
So
And I think they should be entitled to a bonus on their house. Okay.
Mr. President.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you. Some good news from Paradise. We stood together there 6 years ago, along with the governor.
That was so
That 3,400 homes have been rebuilt out of the 18,000 lost, and there's 400 more in the wings. And so FEMA was very helpful. Now my colleague who has Altadena here, probably a very similar situation. Clearing the lots, they're probably going to have to clear about a foot worth of soil underneath those foundations to get the toxicity out. So they'll need a lot of help. Those are working class folks in Altadena.
And we did a good job with you
And
people.
FEMA was extremely helpful.
Yep.
30,000.
That was the old days when FEMA was good. FEMA's no good anymore.
Yeah.
That was when we ran it. FEMA was very good, but now FEMA's not good.
We've got to get them on track. But on the water, thanks so much for your strong efforts on that. Right now, Lake Shasta, which is in my district, is dumping more water than what is coming in. So is Folsom Lake. And those are federal projects that should be building up, because we're latter January here. And there's not, you can't count on the rain and the snow coming every year. And so if we don't fill those projects, then my colleague in San Joaquin Valley isn't going to get his water for his farmers. Well, it might be all right up in the north. They aren't going to get it. And then the water needs to go through aqueduct for Southern Cal to refill maybe the Santa Ynez Reservoir that was empty during this.
You know, you don't even need reservoirs. With the water coming down, you don't need the reservoir. You have so much water, you don't need it. You only have reservoirs because you're trying to hold water. But you have natural water coming down
Just fighting with everybody.
along the coast. It's for 1 million years it's been coming. You know that, right?
Yeah.
In addition to that, you have a lot of half pipe. In other words, you have the half pipe that's built, and it hasn't been used. You see, it's bone dry. No water's been in that half pipe for years and years. It was closed up years ago.
Had the reservoir,
It's already there. Yeah.
Had
You
the
got it, you
reservoir
got it.
above Palisades been full, they wouldn't have run out of water in a few hours. It would have gone for at least a few days with 40 acre
my
feet
problem.
out of 600,000
That
acre
reservoir's
feet.
been empty for a long time.
Brother,
It
what?
shouldn't have been empty. Okay. Any other
Thank you.
questions? Yeah, please.
Mr. President, my name is Tracy Park. I represent the people of the Pacific Palisades on the LA City Council. I wanted to thank you for your loyal support to our military, our police officers, and especially our firefighters.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
My top priority going forward is to get these men and women home as soon as possible and open up the pathway to begin their rebuilding process. It was the Army Corps of Engineers who announced last night that it would be 18 months. I am fully committed to doing my part on the ground with our state agencies and our city and our county partners to speed this up.
Good.
I just ask for your ongoing partnership with FEMA and the EPA and our other federal agencies to make sure that we have a commitment across all layers of government to get these people back home. Thank you, sir.
I do, thank you very much. It's well said. I do have to say FEMA is a big disappointment. We had it working well. We had great people, but FEMA's not good anymore. What FEMA did in North Carolina, you know, they still haven't even gone to certain areas. They don't know what they're doing. And I say, you don't need FEMA. You need a good state government. And when you have a problem in Los Angeles, or when you have a problem even in the state of California, you have your own, essentially FEMA, you fix it yourself. You don't have somebody coming in from a state where they have no idea, like Florida. They come in from hurricanes. They have people staying in Alaska. And now they see, oh, this is very nice.
Also,
but by the time they get familiar with it, they don't know anything. The FEMA is a very expensive,
what's with these hats?
in my opinion, mostly failed situation. We had great people. We did some great jobs, but each state should take care of their problem and get money from the federal government. It would be so much better, so much more efficient. So we're looking at that because we have had, and you're going to have problems with FEMA too. You've already had problems with FEMA. FEMA doesn't even show up. It takes weeks before they even show up. And what happens is the state then relies on FEMA and nobody does anything because FEMA doesn't show up. So it's not a good situation. So we'll make some recommendations on that. But you have to push like hell to get the permits because I'm just hearing things that I don't like to hear. I think you're not going to get your permits as fast as people are saying. We have to get them. And Mayor, if I can help you at all in that regard, you'll let me know. But you're going to have all your federal permits. That's going to be the easy part, which, by the way, is by far the hardest part. You know who controls your water is Department of Commerce, and I already have that approval. And that's usually a very long process, but that's the hard part was the federal, but we already have that done. So anything I can do, please let me know. Please, go ahead. You lost all your schools. You lost your 4 schools?
Why don't they have a mic to like pass around or something so people can like hear what's being asked? What the fuck? We need a rug.
Were they completely burned down, the schools? Wow. All of them? All of them? No, you can't. No.
That's right.
Well, I'm going to ask Rick to
I
set.
just want to see how much it costs.
I think right from this table. You might put a couple of the fire guys back there on that I just met, okay?
I don't think I can have it
because they're really good, but get a group and figure out how we can do the processing first.
Mr. President, if I can just defend FEMA a little bit.
Yeah.
Next week.
They brought thousands of people in.
There's a couple of
I don't know how they're doing in other states. They're doing a good job for us here. They've got a huge center that's open from 9 in the morning till 8 at night. But also, when you have a disaster this size, you need to be able to deploy thousands of people, which they've been able to do. Now, California, if we did it on our own, maybe we'd have thousands of people.
You do.
But if Rhode Island has a Palisades disaster,
love it.
Are they then supposed to keep?
How many people do you have in California? 36? How many? How many million? How many million people do you have? You have 40 million people. You're not going to get a few thousand people. The problem with FEMA is they come from all over the country. They end up in arguments with your people from California because they want to do it a totally different way. And
They're getting
I can
all
live
the-
either way, but you haven't gotten very much done with FEMA and all you have to do is look at North Carolina. It's one of the great disasters of all time.
And Mr. President, you can't have Rhode Island maintain a staff of thousands and thousands of people waiting to see if they have a disaster.
You know who came in and fixed North Carolina or the process? Other states, people from all over the country came. And you have the same thing. You have a lot of people from all over the country. Getting the people is not a problem. Getting the organization's a big problem. FEMA's incompetently run, and it costs about 3 times more than it should cost.
I'm hoping
we
that
can
you
spend
get a
money
better
on
run.
schools instead of giving money to bureaucracy. It takes you so much longer.
Mr. President,
It takes you so much longer.
FEMA for helping our people.
FEMA has a standard, Brad, and I'm a builder. I was a very good builder. FEMA has a standard that's so slow. They want permit on permit on permit, and then they want permits on top of that. If you use FEMA, you'll be here for a long time. What I'm saying is get the city, get the state to give you immediate 24-hour permits. These people are going to build their own homes. They're going to get them built fast. How many of the people, could I ask you one question? How many of the people, what are people going to do for financing? What are people going to do? How many people
so
can build a
obsessed
home,
with this.
percentage-wise,
So
like
cute.
where they don't have to go out and
To
get funds?
myself.
Some people are just not going to be able to rebuild their home because they have a beautiful home, but they don't have cash, right? So what are people looking to do in that case? You're going to have a big percentage, I would assume, Brad, like that. What are they going to do? Go ahead.
Mr. President, without your help, they're only going to get $43,000 from the federal government, even if they have a half
Well, you know,
million dollar
you did
uninsured
something,
loss.
Brad, where every insurance company in the country left California. That's why you have no insurance, because you made it so impossible. People that think like you made it so impossible. And you know,
Brad,
Me?
every
Mr.
insurance
President,
company.
I don't know what
I'll
you
tell you
know
this.
about my thinking.
I've never seen a state where almost nobody has insurance. And I said, what happened? And they said like 6 months ago they all left. And 2 years ago they had different, quadrants, but they left. And you have very little insurance here. I mean, I've never seen anything like it.
We had a lot of insurance companies pull out, but I have
And
no
the
idea.
insurance companies actually have been warning you. Now, I'm not a big fan of insurance companies, okay? They have their big drawbacks too, but the insurance company I read the papers very well, and they've been warning California for a long time. They've also been saying, we want water. You don't have water. You're supposed to get fire insurance. And the insurance company goes, you don't have any water in your fire hydrants. So it's a tough situation. I'm not a big fan of insurance companies. I get that.
They're pulling out of
But
Florida
Brad,
as
you
well.
lost your insurance company 6 months ago because the state wouldn't give them what they had to have.
yeah, and Mr. President, I remember the
Go ahead,
big-
please. Go ahead.
Medium.
I'm Ed Ring from the California Policy Center, and in the matter of prevention of fires, in the matter of the cost of rebuilding, both of which affect insurance rates, I think one, to support something one of the other participants said, a reform you might consider, and it could be an act of Congress, is that the losers in environmentalist lawsuits pays the legal fees. And I think that would be a big step in the right direction.
Oh, you mean loser pays. I love that. Well, if you did loser pays, you could cut your courts in you could cut them down about 90%. Loser pays. You know what would also benefit? Medical. If you had loser pays for medical, your medical costs would go down by 50%.
What is that?
That's an interesting thing. I bring that up, but the only problem? The strongest lobby
Are
in
they
the world.
saying
You know what it is?
loser
The lawyer
pays
lobby.
or loser
So, when you go
pays?
back to your local congressman, hello, congressman, how about going against the lawyers for a little while? No, loser pay is, very good. In Europe, they use it in certain parts of Europe, and they have very little litigations, right? Yes, please.
Mr. President, I represent the 27th Congressional District, which is on the north side of the North San Fernando Valley through Santa Clarita and Lancaster and Palmdale. I just wanted to tell you a story of heroism. Yesterday, we had another big fire. We had several big fires across, and this fire was moving fast. It was moving 1,000 feet per minute. But what these heroes did, the firefighters and the sheriffs and the law enforcement officials, they mobilized 4,000 people within about 6 hours. They mobilized 20 air attack aircraft and helicopters, and they saved the city of Castaic. And so I just wanted to ask you to join us in recognizing those amazing heroes.
I love that.
I think the thing that we all, and I'm very encouraged by your words, we're all here to help the folks here,
Yep,
right?
that's right.
And your words about building quickly, building well, but building quickly is what I think we are all here to do. And I think if we can take that spirit out of today, it is really important that you and your wife are here. If we can take that spirit, we're going to help these people as quickly as possible, get them back on their feet, and recreate these amazing communities that we have
And
here.
you'll take the word spirit, such a great word, such an important word. You'll take their guts away. You'll take their spirit away if you don't give them the permits. You're going to take their guts. They're going to say, all of a sudden they'll start looking for houses, and your whole thing is going to blow up on you. These people want to get going. This place can go quickly, but you don't want to take their spirit away, and that will take their spirit away. So you're 100% right. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, and we can put a picture above that. Maybe we should go ahead and decide.
What?
I feel like I chose a lot of red and brown because that's their favorite colors. But I don't remember. Also,
You
yeah,
noticed that. Oh, look at
I
this
can
guy. He
add it
studies
on
that.
here.
No. Bank of
Yes.
America. They're not nice. Sounds very nice. The Bank of America. They're not nice.
Oh, this is new. It's not a very good sale to be for real.
Well, we're starting to do. We're doing numbers
yeah, I
on
kinda
banks.
want that
Yeah,
back.
we're doing it. Is that Leonard Boxer next to you? Leonard? Huh? We have Leonard. We have. Oh, there's Skip. I have them all here, huh? Look at
This is
Skip.
the
I haven't
pack.
seen
I
you in a
want
long
this
time.
pack
You used
for
to be a very good
sure.
golfer.
I've
You
seen
still a
this
good
pack.
golfer?
It has some really
Huh?
good stuff in here.
And he's a good
Like
guy
the
too. Hi, Skip.
headboard thing,
You got them all,
computer
huh?
Stuff,
Got Leonard, Skip.
obviously. Yeah, I definitely
Thank you.
want this
Go ahead,
back.
please.
Mr. President, I just wanted to say Paradise is coming back because of the
It
help
only
that you
shows
gave
you
us.
the new ones, I
And we
think.
really want to thank you for that. And that's why we're
I don't
here
like that that's
also,
on
is
there,
because we
but
want to help
it's
our
convenient.
We did a
brothers
good
and
job
sisters.
with Paradise, didn't we? What a
It's just
fire
very
that was.
influential.
It was a terrible
We've
fire.
had many
Probably
people
like
were found, and only the certain type of German
right
Shepherd
there.
could even find it, right? You could not tell. The dog would go right up. There's the body, and the incineration was so horrible, so horrible.
Okay,
And when we
need
see
to
what
move
we see the same
light.
devastation.
this
So
is
Paradise
my
is going
hack.
good,
I think
right?
I
It's
talked
going
about
good.
it
We're coming
before.
back.
Yeah,
And
it's
it's because
good.
of the
I
help,
probably
and we want
have,
to help
but I
our
like
brothers
to
and
use
sisters here in
the-
LA to come back too.
I like to
And
use
I
the
know that's
lights
what you're
or
gonna do,
whatever.
and so we really appreciate
and
that.
the-
But from Paradise to the Palisades,
the
the problem
ceiling
is
fan
fuel.
at the same
It's
time
the
because
fuel,
at
the
least for
vegetation,
where
the
I
dry
live,
grasses,
that's more like
the
realistic.
chaparral.
Like
There's a
literally every
tremendous
single
amount
house
of it,
I
and
have
we're
You
not
got to
ever
remove
lived
it.
in
You got to remove it, and you
ever
got to remove it, and you got to
has
do the
ceiling
other things that
fans.
we've said 10 times. I mean,
Right.
you got to remove it. You just can't have it. I see it
just-
even
it-
now.
but
I
I
saw the
also
fire. We
live in
flew
the
over it,
South,
and
so, like, it makes
you got a
sense
lot
to
of
get
dry
popular.
stuff. It's bone dry.
And the environmental.
And you know, I
In the deep
predicted this
South.
7 years ago. I said, "Do it, get it
I
done."
still have rubber bands.
And everybody laughed. They thought it was. I said,
Let me throw those
"Forest
away
management."
before
They
we
thought it was
capture
such a funny term. Ha ha ha! That's so
One of my
funny.
cats.
Now it's not funny anymore. You know, we were right.
It's number one cause of these fires. Number one
Eating
cause.
You wouldn't
something
have any
you're not
fires.
supposed to,
Right.
They love that
And if we
shit.
just remove those environmental regulations, NEPA, CEQA at the state level, they get in the way of us doing those projects.
It's all a con job. You know that, right? It's all a big,
Berry
it's all a
Creek,
big con
the
job.
town of Berry Creek in my district,
Yeah.
CEQA stopped them from doing a fuel reduction project. They said 18 months. That's where 18 months comes from, because at least 18 months on a
color
CEQA
is
review.
this?
That community is no longer here today because of the North Complex fire. We didn't build that project. We need to make sure that never happens again.
wanna
We have to
switch it
stop those
out.
things from happening, so we don't have.
Well, it will
Paradise
happen
in
here.
Palisades.
Unless you're very strong as a
There we
group
go.
of people and demand that you have the right to go onto your property
Ooh,
and
she's
start
coming
the
together.
process
She's
immediately,
coming
like tomorrow.
together.
How many people did I see on your street where they're standing in front of their lot? The house is, there's really not much demolition. It's incinerated, right? So it's not like a lot of stuff. It's not like you have 3 stories worth of concrete. It's all incinerated. And all of the people were standing there, and they weren't allowed to even go onto their lot. You got to let them do. If you can do that, you're going to see this thing go like wildfire. And if you don't, you're going to have those lots for years because people are going to leave. They're going to, as much as you love your location and your place, and you're in the real estate business, as much as you love your location and your site, your housing sites. They're going to leave. They're going to leave. They're going to find other things. They're not going to put up with it.
normally don't
They have spirit now, but in a year from now, they won't have spirit if you don't let them go. So just harness it.
I don't know what I was thinking with that to begin with.
Look, I'm going to give you everything you want. I'm going to give you more than any president would have ever given you. If most presidents wouldn't be here, number one. They certainly wouldn't be here after 3 days. They would not be here. I can tell you that. And we're going to override all of permitting. The only thing you have to do is get your state people, which should be very easy, because that's literally so easy to do. And I know the mayor, and I know she's working very hard, but she's got very powerful emergency, it's called an emergency petition, and you can petition very quickly. And I just hope you can give them, because it's very rare that the federal government would be ahead of the state government, because the federal government, federal permits are much tougher. But you essentially already have your permits. You can just go and go wild. Red, as soon as you can get those permits, whatever you can do, if you can put that genius of yours to work on getting a permit.
Let me pause this for a second. Well,
you'll be doing much better than some of the other things you've said, okay?
But it's been crazy.
But we do appreciate you. So, Mayor, could I just leave you with that? It's a big permitting deal. We're going to be back, and I'm going to put Rick in charge of just representing me for a period of time until we figure out exactly who we want to do it, whether we want a commission or an individual. You know, if you have a good individual, if you have a really good individual, and they are rare, but if you have a really good individual, it's always better than a commission. Because the commission gets bogged down a little bit, Daryl, right? So it's if you had the right individual, and I know we do. We have a lot of great individuals in this community, but it's an honor to be with you. It was an honor to be with your firemen before and your policemen. We met some great people, and these are people that are leaders, and they're just fantastic. It's a fantastic group of people, and they were very brave. I want to tell you, your fire people are so well thought of. You had big fires, and it was hard to put them out, but boy, were they brave. They were really fighting against a tough thing, and everybody in the country knows it. Everybody in the country knows it. And it was an honor to be with you. So I'll be back, and we'll work very hard, and I hope you guys can start doing your cleanup starting like tomorrow at around 12 o'clock, okay? Thank you all very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Microwave. Oh my God, what the heck? That's crazy.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Fred. Nice to meet you. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it.
What the heck? I mean, we only saw like part of that, but I don't know.
Good. It'll work out. It's gonna work out.
I mean, I don't really believe much of what he says ever.
President, I want you to meet.
That's crazy. Why did he need to pick up the? Why did he feel the need to pick up the fireman helmet? Fire helmet, whatever it's called. Fucking. What the fuck? Let's see what else.
The war in Ukraine could be entering a game-changing new phase, one that might pull NATO directly into the fight. After over 1,000 days of brutal conflict, both Ukraine and Russia are ramping up their offensives. Ukraine is striking deeper into Russian territory with newly approved long-range missiles, while Russia is desperately trying to push deeper into Donbass. But the real shocker, NATO might not stay on the sidelines for much longer. A recent report reveals that France and the UK have reignited talks about deploying troops to Ukraine. These aren't just symbolic discussions, they're about turning the tide of war and ending it once and for all. But what exactly are these talks about? How far are France and the UK willing to go? And could this be the beginning of NATO's next major step in Ukraine? Let's break it down. The Le Monde report doesn't reveal much detail, but it emphasizes growing defense cooperation between France and the UK, with Ukraine at the center of the conversation. While there's no direct mention of NATO troops on the ground, the talks suggest that both countries recognize the need for a stronger, united response to the conflict. French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot recently fueled speculation by calling on NATO allies to stop creating red lines. These lines were supposed to define the boundaries of acceptable actions during the war. No direct interventions, certain weapons off-limit, specific zones out of bounds. But over time, these red lines have lost their meaning. As the war drags on, both NATO and Russia have tested, bent, or outright ignored these so-called limits. What started as clear boundaries are now little more than political gestures, leaving the conflict without any real rules. And that's the question. With these lines disappearing, what happens next? Let's dive into how NATO's shifting stance could change the war's future. NATO's red lines were initially meant to contain Russia's aggression and prevent the conflict from spilling beyond Ukraine. The first was simple: stop Russia from invading Ukraine in the first place, with promises of economic sanctions as a deterrent. But when that failed in February 2022, sanctions became a reactive measure rather than a preventative one. Other red lines focused on preventing attacks on civilians and keeping the war's impact localized. But these two were broken as Russia's military ignored boundaries and targeted civilian areas. Calls for war crime investigations and arrest warrants followed, but immediate results remained elusive. Russia, meanwhile, has drawn its own red lines, dozens of them. Most of Putin's lines aim to limit NATO's involvement in the war, from prohibiting Western military aid to opposing donations of tanks, fighter jets, and long-range missiles. Time and again, Putin has threatened consequences, often invoking Russia's nuclear deterrence policy to bolster his warnings. But most of these lines have been ignored or carefully sidestepped by NATO. For example, when Russia objected to the US sending ATACMS missiles to Ukraine, NATO delayed the shipment, opting instead for UK-supplied Storm Shadow missiles. With a slightly shorter range of 160 miles, these missiles technically stayed under Russia's stated limit, at least for a time. Ukraine used Storm Shadows to strike Russian supply lines in Donbass and Crimea, forcing Russia to pull equipment back further out of range. This retreat ultimately led to NATO providing ATACMS anyway, escalating Ukraine's long-range capabilities even further. But the real way NATO has countered Russia's red lines? By simply calling Putin's bluff. Again and again, NATO has bet that Russia's threats wouldn't match its actions, and it's largely been right. But why has this gamble paid off? NATO had two good reasons for taking the risk. For one, Russia has effectively started the war by breaking one of the first red lines created between the two entities, and has repeatedly tried to threaten Ukraine further by announcing more and more constricting red lines of its own. In fact, the aggression Russia has been displaying against Ukraine started long before 2022, and in fact, all the way back in 2014, with the annexation of Crimea. When the conflict escalated into a full-blown invasion, NATO believed, and perhaps rightly so, that Russia was going to play the part of the aggressor no matter how many red lines the organization broke. Secondly, Russia's red lines were pretty much always followed by vague comments suggesting NATO's actions would be considered geopolitical and strategic violations, prompting Russia to retaliate with nuclear weapons. However, as the first red lines were broken and Russia failed to mount responses directly against NATO, the alliance began to suspect that the threats were idle. One of the few ways that Russia could affect the EU economy was by disconnecting Central Europe from the Russian natural gas supply. However, the US and Norway stepped in to become major exporters to countries throughout Europe, effectively making NATO resource independent from Russia. Even more importantly, Russia's nuclear saber rattling started getting less frightening with each new threat. particularly considering that NATO had already forced Russia to focus its economy and military on Ukraine rather than NATO. Additionally, the US, France, and the UK all maintain extensive nuclear deterrent strategies and launch discovery mechanisms. If Russia decided to use nuclear weapons against NATO, it would likely need to expend most, if not all, of its nuclear arsenal in one go to attempt to mount a devastating first strike against all three nations. The strategy apparently didn't appeal to Russia, considering that the US was sufficiently far away to mount a counterstrike of its own in time, one which would have a much more devastating effect on the Russian Federation comparatively. As a result, the discussion between the UK and France about directly assisting Ukraine, and their suggestion that NATO stop acknowledging red lines that Russia draws, as well as acting on an axis entirely separate from making red lines of their own, is evocative of a much deeper issue. NATO no longer has much of a reason to believe Putin's threats about what he might or might not do regarding NATO's ongoing assistance in Ukraine. To that end, Barrot hinted that both the UK and France are open about asking NATO to invite Ukraine into the alliance. This would give Ukraine the umbrella of defense that all other members enjoy due to Article 5, which states that members are obligated to provide direct military support to defend each other's territory. The possibility of Ukraine becoming a NATO member was a key part of.
I kind of want this to be closer to this.
Now Taxes is getting the TurboTax app and filing your taxes yourself 100% free if you didn't file with us last year. Pay $0 when you file by 2/18. All tax forms, all 100% free. Now this is tax.
What started the conflict in the first place. Russia considered NATO expansion a threat to its security, and invading Ukraine presented a multi-pronged solution to Russia's ongoing diplomatic, economic, and demographic problems. And with Ukraine beginning to align itself more and more with the West over the previous 2 decades, and in the process shedding its connection with Russia as a former Soviet state, Putin used the threat of NATO membership as one of his justifications to invade. While Ukraine joining NATO would represent the accomplishment of one of the main goals of the current Ukrainian government, and has been for some time now, there are a few issues in that plan. First, NATO has a somewhat confusing and vague set of requirements when it comes to actually determining whether a country can join the alliance. One of the most frequently cited requirements is the country must enact economic and national defense reforms to bring itself in line with the rest of the alliance. However, the country also needs to resolve any outstanding political and territorial issues. The ongoing war in Ukraine would certainly be considered a non-starter with the second condition, since a part of Ukraine's territory is technically occupied and administered by Russia at the moment. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has noted that he'd be open to Ukraine becoming a NATO member, with the territory currently administered by the Ukrainian government immediately falling under NATO's protection. However, the occupied part of Ukraine would be under Russian administration until a more diplomatic solution could be implemented. Still, Zelensky is adamant about Ukraine joining NATO only if they recognize the previous Ukrainian borders, i.e. the ones that predate the 2022 invasion. That puts NATO in a difficult spot. Allowing Ukraine to join NATO while it's still in the middle of an active war could invoke Article 5 and call on its other members to respond. It would plunge most of Europe, the US, and Canada into a direct war with Russia, which could escalate quickly if Russian allies like China and Iran join its side. But if Ukraine does manage to sign an armistice and become a NATO member with only partial control of its territory, there's no telling how NATO could force Russia to cede the occupied areas. This has led NATO dividing itself into 2 camps. One of the camps is led by the US and Germany, the 2 largest economies of the alliance, which are adamant about maintaining the current involvement of NATO, only providing indirect assistance through donations to let the war reach its conclusion in time. The other camp seems to be led by France and the UK, which have started to propose increasingly radical approaches to dealing with the problem, including the aforementioned possibility of deploying their troops inside Ukraine. However, there's discord concerning this idea even inside those countries. The UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy has noted that the UK doesn't actually plan to send any troops away from its borders at this time. The latter part of the statement refers to the ongoing discussion on the members' possible elevated involvement in the conflict. The UK has so far been to Ukraine, particularly of relatively modern long-range equipment such as the Storm Shadow missiles, as well as providing vital training for Ukrainian forces on handling Western military platforms and equipment. However, Lammy has stated that the country is adamant on maintaining its level of involvement in the conflict and not committing any of its soldiers to be deployed inside an active war zone. The somewhat contradictory statements from the UK and French authorities have put a dampener on possible military escalation on NATO's side. However, both governments have agreed that NATO has been ramping up its independent national defense efforts, particularly in Eastern Europe. This indicates that while NATO is not yet ready to commit to deploying its soldiers to Ukraine directly, the alliance has likely been creating plans for a possible conflict with Russia that would be fought entirely between Russia and NATO, independent of the current war in Ukraine. Again, this stems from the previous belief that NATO no longer sees Russia as trustworthy in obeying internationally recognized borders and agreements. The possibility of NATO's open conflict with Russia stems from a few countries having significant history with the Federation. In particular, these are the Baltic states, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, which belonged to the Soviet Union and were relatively quick to join NATO after their independence.
It's weird that you're
The other is
outside
Finland, which shares a
with
lengthy
this old
border with
lady
Russia
who's
and was
saying
previously
this.
at war with the Soviet Union
this
during
thing-
World
yeah,
War
they
II,
can still
at
sit,
which
it's
point it lost
fine.
more than a tenth of its
It's
territory.
fine.
Furthermore, Finland and Russia have recently
Yeah, I mean, they're
clashed over
foot
border
flipping
issues,
into it a
particularly
little
with
bit, but
regards
you know
to Finland
what?
claiming that Russia is using the
It's
ongoing
chill. We
migrant
can
crisis
just
in
scooch
Syria
it.
and the Middle
Well,
East
no, 'cause
to
that-
overload
well,
Finland's
yeah.
justice and
We can just
immigration
scooch it just a
system
little
through the
bit,
Russia-Finnish
just
border. This has
Oh,
led to Finland
shit.
closing most of the border crossings with
Oh, that's
Russia,
good to
and
know.
Russia reneging on agreements that were already
case you wanna
tenuous
make
between the two
this a
nations.
different
But there's
color, I
another
guess
threat
you
to NATO
can.
beyond Russia: internal
Oh,
conflict. The alliance needs its members to agree on
nice,
sweeping
nice,
changes in
nice.
policy
Life
to
hack.
decide on providing Ukraine with more military assistance. The US, especially under the current
Does that mean you can
administration of President Joe
slot
Biden,
a
has been
different
trying to
one? 'Cause that
maintain a
one
more
kinda
passive
looks like a
approach,
tree.
prohibiting Ukraine from using
Oh, that's
donated long-range
funny.
weaponry in Russian territory until November 2024, 33 months into the conflict. The Biden administration finally changed course when it started becoming apparent that Ukraine's domestic weapons industry
That's funny.
already managed
Okay,
to
we're gonna
create
have it like
long-range
that
warfare
just
solutions
because we
via
can.
drones. This had
Just
the benefit of
because we
bypassing more of
can.
Russia's red lines, while also allowing Ukraine to mount more pressure.
We can also go ahead and put like. Do we have anything? We have like that for the kid. For the human child. You could put a toy box for the doggo over. Oh shit, wrong button. Over here, maybe.
Via
Goodbye.
its long-range offensive. The fact that Russia's nuclear threats on NATO actually worked to delay several important shipments of military aid showcased that the alliance was still hesitant due to its belief in how far Russia was willing to go in the war, at least as recently as a few months
telling
ago.
me the
And
kid
more
can
recently,
buy
there's
stuff?
another big reason for NATO to start having more internal debates.
Okay.
The US administration change,
What the fuck?
with President-elect Donald Trump winning the 2024 US elections.
Admire
January
new
20th,
possession?
2025
Oh, that's funny.
is the scheduled inauguration date for the
Can
new
she not
president to
open
assume
it?
office. At that point, the current Biden administration and its policies are likely going to be reviewed and adjusted to be more in line with Trump's geopolitical aspirations. And Trump has previously been vocal about NATO members not pulling their weight. In Trump's mind, most countries in Western Europe have shirked their responsibilities to the alliance.
Sometimes I feel
in
like
regard to
they
maintaining
make
a
certain
sizable
things
active
in
force
Sims
and
too
providing the
big,
recommended national
but
defense budget
maybe
of
I'm
2% of their nation's GDP. And while
Probably
some countries
wiling,
have
but I
rectified
just-
this,
I
at least
don't know where I'm
partially,
gonna
there's
put
likely a
this.
long
And
way to go before
honestly,
NATO
like,
countries
I just
fully
don't
implement
wanna
their
make
national
this place
defense
any
overhauls
bigger
that
than I've
started
already
in the
made
early
it. I feel
2020s.
like we keep
For
making
example,
it
the
bigger,
UK military budget has been hovering around the 2%
I mean,
mark
it's
for
probably
2
the
decades,
same
with a
size
sharp
it was
decline
to
from
begin
roughly
with, but it's
3.5% at the end of the
well, I
Cold
mean,
War.
it
This
definitely
is
has
further
more stuff in
exacerbated
it,
by
and
the
it's
country
definitely
slowly losing portions of
more
its armed forces,
interesting
with the current
to look at.
184,000 personnel representing a 14%
But-
decrease from the 2012 numbers and dropping below 80,000 active troops by the early 20s. Some analysts have gone as
I
far
don't
to
wanna put it
suggest that
beside
the
the
current British
trash
army is woefully
can, 'cause
unprepared
it's
to
kind
fight
of-
a prolonged,
Oh, well, maybe I
large-scale
can move the
war
trash can.
similar to the one ongoing in
No,
Ukraine.
but I kinda
The
hate
main
that right
proposal to
there.
rectify that
We
would be to
definitely
increase
need
spending far above the minimum
something
recommendation to at least 3%
for
of the
the
country's
dog.
GDP. This would lead to the
Like-
UK having a military budget of around $80 billion
That
per
would be
year,
like-
which would be roughly 1/10 of the US budget, and allow the country to become the world's fourth largest
Maybe we
spender
can have
overall,
something in
behind China
here.
and Russia. The budget could be used to improve both the number and combat
no,
preparedness of British
there's
forces,
not
but
enough
also allow the
space
country
in
to modernize
there.
its nuclear deterrence systems. France has a different set of issues to contend with. The French government has basically
one
retooled
smaller?
its military into a
Oh,
cooperative
it kind
force
of is,
that emphasizes
actually.
international military operations and joint forces with other NATO
sell
members.
that
This has
or get
allowed
rid of
France
it.
to develop one of the highest potentials for quick
that's
response
not
abroad
really small.
and rapid tactical response both in Europe and other continents. However, the French military itself has similarly lost manpower in recent years, and the emphasis on
Ooh, we can put it
international
over
cooperation could
here.
mean
That
the
actually
country's
works
focus on its own
perfect.
defenses may have been
We can put
reduced
it in,
over
like,
recent years. Therefore, it might
the
not be surprising that
corner
the
right
UK
here,
and
maybe?
France
Maybe
have
not
similar
turned, but
objectives and
maybe just,
aspirations inside NATO, mainly reinforcing the cumulative NATO defences and borders with regard to Russia. After all, both countries have some of the most battle-tested militaries, with practically
Okay, that
centuries of
works
military
perfectly
experience
right
in
there,
modernization
actually.
guided by the US. Additionally, both countries have nuclear arsenals and independent nuclear deterrence policies, albeit their sizes and
We
capabilities
can also
are
put
dwarfed
one
by Russia
outside.
and
It'll
the
be
US.
like,
Which
oh
brings
my
us back to the
God,
ongoing issue of
outside
the new
toys.
Trump administration.
Like,
Even if
it's
Trump
not even a big
acknowledges the
deal.
progress the alliance has
Just
made during the
outside
4 years after
toys.
his first term, there's no
It's okay
telling
that-
whether he would
that
continue to pursue
the
an
doggo
anti-NATO
has
policy
two.
after Inauguration Day. If the US makes a 180-degree turn in NATO-oriented policies and starts looking
No,
into
that's
leaving the
way
alliance
too big.
altogether, it would mean NATO could lose the largest economy and military in the world, practically crippling its defensive capabilities. Of course, the European nations combined would
Not
still be able to win a potential war with Russia, so long as the latter
Okay,
doesn't
we can
result in
put some of
nuclear
these
warfare.
like in
Perhaps
random
more importantly,
places.
Trump's administration could lead to the US pushing
the
for deepening its
thing
relations with Russia, just like it
and
did in his first term. This could
outside.
embolden Putin to make more offensive
Okay, I guess that's
moves
good.
both in Ukraine and
Wait,
elsewhere,
wait.
and
Pet
some of those will be out of
furniture?
NATO's purview and control. Both Ukraine
We
and
have
Russia
a
are aware of the
bed
fact that the new
already
US
for the
presidency could upend the
dog.
entire tide of war, considering that the US has significant influence in NATO, which is in turn practically the only reason Ukraine has been able to wage war for as long as it has. Russia's increased tempo in Donbass and unveiling of
Yeah,
more
we
devastating
have
ballistic weapons shows
a
that it could be
bed
mounting a much
already.
more extensive offensive
Maybe-
to kick off 2025. Just in time to start making proposals for
No,
a peace treaty under Trump's guidance
no, I
and
don't
oversight.
feel like we need
And while
another one.
analysts
I feel
have
like
previously
it's fine,
suggested that the war was
actually.
unlikely to finish during 2025,
And
the changing
that's just, like,
geopolitical stance of the
pet-related
US
things, I
could turn those estimates on their heads.
Yeah,
It's up
so
to the
let's
rest
go
of
back and look
NATO
at
to make
decorations
more
again
determined and
and
extensive
get
moves
some
to
of
ensure
this
that the US
wrapped up.
remains
I'm
aligned with
hoping
the
we can
alliance
finish
after the
this build
administration
today.
change. France and the UK
tomorrow
are likely to
we
remain
can start
big factors
on a
and
new build.
influencers
I'm
on those
thinking
decisions.
we're gonna
However, that still
redo.
leaves us with a few concerns. Neither country is willing to make any immediate decisions regarding Ukraine.
My bad.
Especially in terms
Tomorrow,
of
I'm
direct
definitely
military
gonna have some
involvement.
water over
If this
here.
continues,
But tomorrow, I
NATO
think
could
we're gonna
lose the advantage in the
redo
pro-defense
this build
narrative
that
it's
I'm pointing
maintained
at
over
with the
the past few
mouse
years.
because there's
But what do you
already
think? Will the UK and
people
France go
over
against US
there.
leadership and try to
And we're
move
definitely
NATO
gonna be
deeper into
redoing
conflict
them
with
as
Russia?
well.
Or will the US prevail in its
I
wait
did
and see
take out
approach? Leave
some
your comments
of
below and thank you for
most of my
watching.
mods
Now
except
go
for
and
my
check out
lashes, basically.
800,000 NATO
So I
and
might
US
have to
military troops ready
redo
to
those.
enter
But
Ukraine.
the good thing
Or
is
click this other
tomorrow,
video
since I go in so super early, I get off super early, and I'm respecting my time and leaving on time. And I'm gonna try, and I love how I haven't wrote anything on my to-do list, but it's fine. I'm gonna try and make a to-do list. So, cause like one thing I need to do tonight, which I can go ahead and write down, is go ahead and pick out my clothes for in the morning, and put everything in my pockets or in my bag that I need. So,
The goal here is to train your mind how to see the world differently, to question what others say.
Cause I'm not good at waking up early. I've been getting better since I've been going into work so early, but it's been nice. I've been really liking it because that means I get off super early, which is the best part, obviously.
Is that it's true no matter
Why would I want
what.
to be there
Imagine
longer than I have to be?
By the time we're done, you will be
Should we put a
with some of the
plant?
methods and tools so you can turn data
Sure,
into information,
why not?
information into knowledge,
We got the trash
Knowledge.
can.
into wisdom.
That looks good. I feel like we need. Oh my
all
god, what
have
the?
susceptibility to bias.
What happened there,
engines
my
on the internet
dude?
Are the epitome
Oh yeah, we still have to do the
of
parent room,
confirmation
but I feel like we need something
and
right
you're going to
there.
use that as evidence that you are correct.
Maybe a mirror, because we have a lot of.
The
Oh
good
wait,
thing
no, we
about
have a mirror
science
right there.
is that it's true
Ooh, but
whether
maybe
or
we
not
should
you
have the
believe it.
mirror right
What does
there
it mean to be
instead.
skeptical? What does it mean to be convinced by data?
Ooh, but I feel like that's.
Questions what they're
Ooh,
unsure of,
actually,
but recognizes when valid evidence is presented to change
that's
their
low
mind.
key kind of perfect right there.
I will
Yeah.
to not only find objective truths, but then communicate to others
Yeah.
how to get there. It's not good enough to be right. You also have to be effective. The less connected you are to what is objectively true, the less likely you will be able to make
Kids
decisions
room definitely
that will
done.
benefit your life.
I
Your
think
life, the
that
life of
is
your
probably
family,
the last thing I would
even
want to add in
civilization
here.
I'm Neil deGrasse Tyson, and this is my
Well,
master
let's look at the
class.
kids stuff really quick. Maybe we can put some kids Is or something silly that like kids would like.
This is what Ivy League universities you can get
Ooh,
into
we can
with
have
a
this
3.6
sitting back here
GPA.
for the kid, like, ooh, maybe the kid made it.
4.0 plus GPAs
Or
get rejected from universities like
they just
Harvard,
got it
Stanford, and other
their
top
kid
universities. Your
likes
child
it.
needs
I don't
these
know.
3 key factors to get into
fuck?
an Ivy League or top 25 university. And it's not having a good GPA or SAT score. Let me explain. Top universities made SAT and ACT submissions optional. And with over 100,000 plus applicants a year, as a parent, you know your child needs to stand out. Top universities like Harvard, Stanford, Princeton, and others admit students who will have a successful
Oh,
career
I haven't
after
seen this
graduation.
one.
This is what gives a university its prestige. Universities are businesses at the end of the day. And if they have a great alumni who become successful, it's the best
thing
form
is
of marketing
funny
for the
looking.
university. And we know
We can
this
put it
because
over
we've
here in
guided
the corner.
thousands of students in over 40 states to get into the
I
top
love
25
this kid's room.
universities.
I feel like
And
it
we
is
know
very
that there are
busy,
3
kind of,
factors in the
but
admission criteria that universities
I
are
like
looking
it.
for.
It's
And that's
fun.
why we have a free webinar where we go over these 3 main factors that prevent 6 to 12 players from getting into the
Decorations.
top colleges. And we cover the important
We
parts
definitely
of
need
college
to do the
admissions that are
walls,
overlooked.
that,
Why
like
90% of
the
students
wall
with a 4.0
colors or
plus
whatever.
GPA are not accepted. What universities actually want in applicants but never say. Seats are limited, so reserve your spot by clicking the
We
link below.
could just do something easy, but I feel like that makes everything kind of like the furniture and everything kind of all blend together.
The UK and France are discussing plans for deploying troops to Ukraine. Are we going to get World War III before we get GTA 6? There's a ton of misinformation and alarmism going around out there. So today we're going to take a deeper dive at why this idea is being considered again and under what conditions it would actually happen. The president of France, Macron, did meet with Zelensky to discuss the possibility of sending peacekeepers to Ukraine. So let's assume that that somehow did happen. What would it look like? According to Ukraine's President Zelensky, he said that he would need 200,000 Western troops to help police the DMZ. But Ukrainian officials privately told the Financial Times and their reporters that a lower number of 50,000 foreign troops operating as a kind of security force across the 1,000-kilometer front line would work. This is all coming from insider information acquired by the Financial Times, who have insight into discussions between Ukrainian and Western partners. What we're seeing here is the behind the scenes of how diplomatic negotiations take place. A leader says one thing publicly, then some officials leak something else to the press,
Okay.
and then they gauge your response in the polls and darkest depths
I
of
feel
the
like this
YouTube
room
comment
looks
section
kind of
here.
awkward.
To me personally, this signals the first potential
I feel like it has
challenge, though,
too
that I
many
can see for
windows,
deploying
to be
UK and French
honest.
troops.
I think we're going
So
to get rid of
50,000
this
soldiers, if we take the
window.
low-end estimate,
As much
means
as
that
I
they will
love
need to
it. Maybe we
pull
should
from
just
other
switch
armies
it.
as well,
No,
because
because I really
nearly
like that. Yeah,
25%
yeah,
of those
yeah.
two nations standing
We're
armies.
just gonna delete
That's why they'll
this
likely
one.
need soldiers from the Netherlands as well as the Baltic and Nordic countries. But I think even then, that's kind of a tall order without the help of
I
the
think
United
that's
States,
better, and then we can put a
Poland,
mirror
or
in the
German military,
corner.
and this troop deployment wouldn't happen out of the blue. It would be on the condition of a peace
Like a
agreement that
standing
authorized
mirror.
it, which means it would have to be signed off on by Russia. This does feel like a vibe shift, though. It's becoming okay to say in polite company, hey, maybe we should send European troops to Ukraine. But that's not the only reason why we're hearing about this again right now. But before we get into that, the only way this video is possible is thanks to Odoo. Odoo prides itself on the motto, unity makes creative strength. And through its robust, seemingly never-ending suite of business management applications, its ability to unite with my creative workflow, for one, has proven to strengthen pretty much
This might
every
not
aspect
work.
of my
This
day-to-day
might not
operations.
work. It's
And today, I want
probably
to
not
focus
gonna work.
mainly on my favorite part of the platform,
And even
what
if
I
it
think
does
really
work, it's probably gonna
differentiates
look
it
dumb.
from a lot of other
So,
competitors out
don't
there,
try it.
its user interface. No matter whether you're using just one application or you have many applications across multiple businesses in different cities, selecting your database to reflect exactly what you want to see is as easy
Does
as a
that
touch
look
of the button, and it's
bad?
completely customizable. that means you can
I
collate
don't
and
think
function the right
so.
data at the right time, which I've found to drastically
Does it look
decrease
like
the
it's
amount
just
of time that I
floating?
spend on things like balancing budgets, authorizing payroll, and checking sales trends. So if you're looking
I'm
for
not
a simple
sure.
and easy to use software
But I
platform
also
for
hate
business
that it's
management,
all
be
the
sure to check
way
out
like,
odoo.com. The first
man,
application is free for life.
we really need
You
more
don't even
mirrors
need a
in the
credit card.
game.
Now
We
back
need
to the show.
standing
The other
mirrors.
reason
We need
everyone
more
and their mom is
modern
talking
looking
about this
mirrors.
because Zelensky is also in talks with the Prime Minister of the
Sigh.
UK on the
We can
topic.
just use this one.
John Paul
This one looks
Rathbone
very
wrote a
like
great article for the Financial Times titled "Will Europe Put Boots on the Ground in
teenager.
Ukraine?" I got a lot of the information for this episode from there, so I recommend you
me.
guys check it out. Links in the description. In the article, John
Same thing,
says that a
definitely
major
that one
reason
looks
for
very
these talks
teenager-ish.
reigniting is because of the Trump
And
administration
this
coming in
also
and
doesn't
pushing for
fit
an
the
end to the war.
vibe. Like,
On
my
January
dude,
22nd,
what the hell?
2025, Trump wrote on Truth Social something that's getting a lot of attention. He
Brother.
wrote, quote, "I'm going to do Russia, whose economy is failing,
And
President
that
Putin
also
a
does
very
not.
big
It just
favor.
doesn't fit
Settle
the
now and stop
vibe.
this
It's not the
ridiculous
right
war. It's only
vibe.
going to get worse if we don't make a deal, and soon. I have no other choice but to put high levels of taxes, tariffs, and sanctions on anything being sold by Russia to the United States and various other participating countries," end quote. No, this isn't late night TV. I'm going to spare you my Trump impression.
No.
Whether or not that happens,
I hate
think it signals
it.
that moves
Okay.
are being made to end the war, which in turn has caused European countries and their leaders
I guess we're
to
gonna
consider
use
what steps
this one
would
if
actually
it's the
need to be
vibe
taken
the
if a
best.
peace agreement is reached. I don't want to be sensational for the sake of clicks. I think it's irresponsible to pretend that this escalation would happen without being carefully considered. We should
can
keep
put a
in mind that
picture
this
right
is not going to
here.
happen tomorrow by
If
any
we can find a
means. These
skinny
are
one, that'd
preliminary
be
talks being
like-
floated and are subject to change based on conditions on the ground. In fact, British officials stressed that they have not yet fully endorsed the idea. They told The Telegraph, quote, "We are getting slightly ahead of
Let's see.
ourselves. We are not there yet," end quote. Whenever I have a problem in life,
Let's look
though,
at
that I can't solve
electronics,
easily,
and then we can look
something
at
I like to do,
creative stuff,
I like
but
to
I
make a
definitely
pros
think we
and
need some
cons
type
list. Pros. It
computer.
could secure peace for many decades like it did on the Korean border. It's much cheaper than providing military aid there indefinitely. It could strengthen European defense cooperation. Now, the cons, there's a potential for escalation. Even peacekeepers could become targets that could explode into a larger war. There could be domestic political backlash from citizens who
Actually,
live in those
I like that right
countries
there.
deploying those troops that might impose that
Perfect.
involvement. Okay, think we might all be a little stupider for having gone through that thought experiment together. France, Poland, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and the Czech Republic
Okay,
are some of the countries that support this possibility.
Activities. We need to look at like some creative stuff, some other creative stuff. Ooh, we could have this like sitting over here. Maybe size it down a little bit.
Each one now. So France's President Macron was one of the
Love
first to float the idea.
that.
Then the
We
government
can
of
have
Estonia
it facing
said that they had ruled
outward,
out
so
sending
it's
troops
still
into
like
Ukraine, as
they
reported
can
by
still grab
BreakingDefense.com.
stuff,
But
obviously,
June
but I
of
want it to
2024
look
saw
like it's sitting
Macron
like
and
beside
even further
here.
clarified his thinking, saying it is much more efficient and practical in certain capacities under certain conditions to train on
ooh,
Ukrainian
and there's a
soil. He goes
cross
on to say,
stitch
no, it's not
one.
about deploying European or
That's
allied
cute.
people and soldiers
That's
to the front
really
line.
cute.
It's about recognizing Ukraine's sovereignty over
See,
its
sometimes
territory.
the Sims
End
be
quote
like
from
really
Macron.
hitting it
Their
on the
national
head,
security advisor
like,
in France
like
said these
the
soldiers
nail
would
on the
take
head
over
or whatever.
rear
But like
roles
sometimes
to
the
free
Sims
up
really be
Ukrainian
missing.
troops who are going
Sometimes they
to
be
the
killing
north
it,
against Belarus's borders,
but not
so
a
they
lot.
could instead go to the front lines.
But not a lot.
France
Just
is already
not
deployed
often
in
enough.
Romania, Poland, and Estonia. Couple thousand
Ooh,
troops there. In response, Russia
yes.
has threatened to specifically
And then you know
prioritize
what else?
targeting
So we're gonna
NATO
give
or European soldiers, even if they're only there in a training capacity. In March
them
2024,
one.
Russia's top spy chief Narishkin
Oh, and it's
said
red.
that if French soldiers were
Perfect.
deployed,
And
they
then
would, quote,
also,
become a legitimate priority target for attacks from Russian armed
Kiddo.
forces.
Kiddo's
This means
learning.
that the fate of all Frenchmen who have
Kiddo
ever come to the
is learning.
territory of the
Kiddo's
Russian
like,
world with a sword would await it. How true those threats are or not is for the intelligence agencies to
I feel like
assess.
this space
Lithuania
looks
has been
kind
one
of
of the more
blank, but
outspoken
there's
supporters
not
of
really
the
much we
idea.
can put over
Lithuania's
there.
foreign minister said that they were prepared to send
I
about 100
don't. Oh
soldiers
yeah,
specifically
yeah.
again to
Okay, I
help
was about to say.
train in
I
Ukraine
don't
and
think
free up
there's anything
hands.
left that
The
I need to
logic
do,
they're
but
presenting, their
actually,
line
I
of
wanted to add a
thinking,
fence,
is that they've already
and
been training
I need to
Ukrainian
fix the
soldiers
dirt.
inside Ukraine since before
Aw,
the full-scale
shit. I think my
invasion.
phone
So this would
died.
simply be a return to that. Here's how
Lame,
Evelyn
which
Farragas, a
I'm
former
about to be
Pentagon
ending stream
official,
anyways because we're
explains the
almost
logic behind the move,
done,
saying, quote,
and
"Remember
I
when
do have
Russia
to do
first
some stuff
invaded
before I go
Crimea
to
in
bed. I will be streaming
2014?
tomorrow,
We
and I will
sent
be streaming
increased troop numbers into
hopefully
Ukraine
for
to train
longer.
Ukrainian
We're gonna
forces in
say I'm
western
gonna
Ukraine,
start
and
stream
we kept
at
rotating them in
7
all the way to
tomorrow, same time,
2022 when
same
we got
time, same
spooked
place.
and withdrew them. It shouldn't
Um,
surprise anyone
I
now
really
when
gotta get
manpower
better
is
at
in
this
short
time
supply
management.
at the Ukrainian front that NATO
Oh,
members
actually,
and alliance
before we
leadership
do
consider
that,
how to help again from the rear, end quote. Another reason this topic is being brought back into the
perfect.
forefront of discussion is because of this great article written by the Telegraph by Ben Riley Smith,
undo.
Henry Samuel, and Joe
I want
Barnes.
it to be
A British
more.
government source told the Telegraph, quote, "There are challenges over what we could support,
Perfect.
what we
I
would
like
want
that
to support,
better.
and the broader question about the threat that those troops may be under and whether that is escalatory," end quote. So they are still noodling on whether or not this is something that they even want to do. As someone who monitors
Perfect.
the information space around war and the defense industry, there's something I've noticed. Certain newspapers
We
have
can do, like,
insider
very
access
light.
with certain governments.
Like,
For
it's just
example,
starting.
Washington, D.C. government officials in the United States,
And then we can
if
put
they
a
want to leak
fence.
information to test how the public will react or how their adversaries might react, they give an anonymous statement to the New York
Ooh.
Times. The British government
Oh,
will often give this
that's for,
insider
like,
information to
okay.
the Telegraph. I was just talking recently with President
Okay,
Stewart about all
whatever.
that. I find it fascinating. So Zelensky
Um,
recently used a different form of communication to test this out. He said on Twitter, "As one such guarantee, we discussed the French initiative to deploy military contingents in Ukraine. We addressed practical steps for
We
its
can move the
implementation,
tree. It's
potential
fine.
expansion, and the involvement of other nations in this effort," end quote.
It's fine.
The
We
idea
can
is that
move
European
the
countries would
tree.
take over responsibility for security in their region instead of the United States getting deeper involved. It's also part of a reaction to the deployment
Okay,
of
I
North
want to be
Korean
able to
soldiers
see a
inside
little bit
Russia.
better, so we'll
The
put
big
the
highlight
tree.
here that I've noticed in real time observing this conflict over the past 3 years now.
Put the tree
is
right
shift of the
there in the
Overton window
corner.
on this topic.
Because
Now,
I
the
still want the
Overton window for
grill
big brain,
under the
smooth brains like
tree.
myself is a concept that
let's
describes the range of
redo all
ideas
of
and policies
this,
that are
basically.
politically
Because
acceptable
I also
to
think I want
general
that to
public
be
at any given time.
lighter.
Ideas outside this window are often
Okay.
viewed too radical and are met with people shouting at them and saying, "Are you actually f***ing crazy?" Meanwhile, ideas that are within the acceptable range of things to bring up at dinner parties with your in-laws, for instance. Any politician talking about sending troops to Ukraine in 2022 would have been seen as off their rocker. But considering how things have changed since then, it's now openly discussed and suggested by countries like France, Poland, and the Baltic nations. Baltic officials warned what conditions would need to be met in order for this to happen. They claimed there would need to be a strategic breakthrough of the front lines.
Okay,
and in
okay,
that
hold on,
case,
wait, I kinda
they
hate
wouldn't
it.
wait for Russian troops to be on their borders.
I
They
kinda
would
liked
send
it better
troops to
before. Hold on, wait,
Ukraine
let's just
themselves.
erase
Just take a listen
it.
to what U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin had to
Oh,
say
shit.
when he was reacting to North Korean troop movements, saying, quote,
We
"It
need
could
it to be,
encourage
like,
others to take
so much
action,
smaller.
different kinds of action. There are a number of things that could happen. It does have the potential of lengthening the conflict or, keyword, broadening the conflict," end quote. As a result of these developments on the battlefield,
That's a
Ukraine
little
has now
much.
requested help from NATO when it comes to training 150,000 new soldiers. That's a massive amount of troops when we consider the current manpower here. According to a BBC article, Kiev has a total of 680,000 active military personnel, but only about 200,000
Okay, now we can
are
make it
estimated to be
even
on the front lines
smaller and
at any given
then
time.
crank up the
Compared to
intensity.
Moscow's 400,000
Kinda like
on
the
Ukraine
grill's
territory.
been there for a
the ratio
while.
right now seems to be at a
And then
tipping
the
point,
spot
right
in
where
front
it
of it
needs to
would
be to
obviously
prevent a
also be
complete
kind of dark because
collapse.
people are
Training
standing
those
there all
additional
of
soldiers
the
for Ukraine
time
requires
to
months
do the
because they
grilling.
often need to be sent to bases in Germany, roughly 1,000 miles away. General Charles Q.
Ooh,
Brown
no.
Jr., who's the chairman of the United States Joint Chiefs of Staff,
Brother,
said in a New York
ugh.
Times article that, quote, "We'll get
Brother,
there eventually
ooh.
over time."
Okay.
For now, an effort
And then
inside
we
Ukraine
also need a
would put a bunch
trash
of
can
NATO
for
trainers at risk
outside.
and would most likely mean having to choose between
wait, what
rationing
about
air
our
defense to protect the
bees?
NATO
That's
trainers or to
right.
protect critical Ukrainian infrastructure,
They're
end
not
quote.
ready.
It appears like there are likely still several steps on the escalation ladder before troop deployments would materialize, though. The first thing that we would
I feel like
likely
you wouldn't
see is the
want
United
the
States and
bees
NATO
by the
air defense systems
kiddos.
being authorized
So
to
maybe
shoot
you'd
down
have-
Russian missiles over
the
Ukraine.
fuck?
After North Korea
Okay,
deployed to Russia,
so maybe you would
this
have
was
it back
another discussion
here
that
where
was
they could
brought
be
up
like
again
quiet
by the
and
West.
by themselves.
And we're seeing the first possible steps because the U.S. Helsinki Commission
I hate when it
requested
gets
the U.S.
that when it
government
gets like close
approve
like that.
Poland's proposal, their request to shoot down Russian
It does
missiles.
that.
This is according to a letter that the Hill got access
Because I would
to.
like
This
for
would be
this
a
to
huge
be-
relief for Ukraine, a country where
That's
a lot
good.
of times they
That's
have to
fine right
switch on
here.
gasoline
So that way
generator
they can
power
chill.
because their electrical grid gets pounded all the time by Russian missiles. It would also be great target practice for Patriot missile operators in Poland. I can only imagine how excited this opportunity would get my friend Habitual Line Crosser. When I chatted with HLC recently, he said that he thought air defense systems could effectively shoot down Russian missiles from Poland, but
There we
ideally he would rather be,
go,
from an air defender's point of view,
and- oh yeah, a
it would work
trash
best if you're
can.
actually on
An
location. The
outside
Helsinki Commission
trash
was formerly
can.
known as the Commission on Security and Cooperation in Europe, and to
Where's
really
that
dumb it down,
again?
it's
I
basically
always
made up of
forget
some
where
U.S.
the
senators
trash
who closely
cans are at, 'cause
monitor
it's
the
always
security situation in
it's-
Europe. The Polish
it's in
foreign
a
minister
weird
said, quote,
place.
I'm
It's
personally of the view
appliances.
when hostile missiles are
See,
on
it's in a
course
weird
of entering our
place. It's in
airspace,
appliances.
it would be
Like,
legitimate
brother,
self-defense to
what?
strike them, because once
Isn't
they
there
do
a
cross
recycling
over into
bin
our
too?
airspace, the risk of debris injuring someone is significant, end quote. However, NATO leadership ultimately shot the idea down, saying it would drag other countries into the war. Over the summer of 2024, a ton of misinformation started spreading online on
Oh,
YouTube
yeah.
channels and news
I'm gonna
articles about how the
these really
Baltic nations were
quickly.
preparing to deploy combat troops to Ukraine. While that might sound like a feel-good story from Ukraine's point of view, this is actually misinformation, and it's dangerous to spread these ideas that aren't true. The worst part about it is that the Kremlin is actually all too happy to promote and spread that information. Russian Foreign Intelligence Service publicly
it's gonna be
suggested
this
that France is now
one.
preparing to deploy a 2,000-strong military
so I also
contingent
think we
inside
need
Ukraine.
more trash
The French
cans.
military outright dismissed the idea as
Brother.
false.
I'm
Russian
also going to give them more
intelligence
money
service
really
published a
quick,
report
so
from
I
one
can
of
give
its
them
agents
one more thing
went through
that
the
I just
supposed deployment
want to
in
give them
detail.
because
The
I'm
problem
cool
is,
like that.
Moscow has been claiming that this deployment, this
I'm
contingent,
cool,
is going to happen ever
and
since March. And we've seen zero evidence of it
that's
yet.
how I be
the
doing
French
it.
Defense Ministry in
we're
Paris
gonna put it
confirmed
back
there's no
here.
French soldiers on Ukrainian soil. And that
Or-
quote, this false information illustrates once again the disinformation maneuver widely used by Russia in recent months. Now that could change tomorrow, but it hasn't happened yet. It's true that Lithuanian politicians, even their prime minister and foreign minister, we're talking about the possibility of sending trainers.
Yeah,
and
we'll put it
advisors
in
to
the
help
back.
Ukraine.
We'll put it in
Many
the back.
media
It's
outlets
fine. They can walk
interpreted this
around.
as a call to deploy combat troops to the front lines, though.
Oh shit!
Axios
I didn't
and
see
other
that.
outlets
We
are
can
now
just
reporting that
rotate it
North Korean
though
troops
to fix.
entered
Oh
large-scale
yeah,
combat
yeah.
against
Okay.
Ukrainian forces
I keep
by
thinking we're
November 8th.
done, and then I
UK
realize
is a fact checker for the
there's
Lithuanian
stuff
website
that's like
Delphi,
messed
and
up
she said,
or
quote,
wonky looking.
however, disinformation spreaders reinterpreted these claims in a
that we
different light,
forgot to
claiming that Lithuanian
put,
politicians are ready to
and
send
the
Lithuanian
mailbox
troops directly
needs
into
to
the war
be
zone. There's also
fixed.
simply logical constraints that would prevent the Baltic nations from unilaterally sustaining and projecting power into Ukraine, according to officials. If a
And
decision was
then
made to
what
deploy troops to
else?
Ukraine,
Oh,
it would
yeah.
depend
Money,
on the
money,
logistics,
money.
transportabilities.
Taxes
Arm keeps
was
itching.
waiting
Okay, so
and
open
wondering.
sheets back up.
and worrying.
Money.
Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who does everything for you.
Oh, my bad.
can do
I
your
meant to
taxes in a
close
day.
it. There was something
So you can
else
get up to
I wanted
$4,000
to give them
instantly.
over here. Oh yeah,
Now this is Taxes.
a vacuum.
Intuit TurboTax.
Get 2 classic chicken sandwiches starting at $4.
We can give them a funny
We
vacuum.
got you. Churches.
For the
that either the
kiddo.
United States, France, Germany, Poland, and Spain would have. So the key thing to look for
I think
here
it's just
is,
because
are
I
those
haven't
nations that I
wore
just
this
listed
sweater
off
in a while,
willing
so
and
I
ready
also
to
haven't
support such a move?
washed
All signs
this
suggest
sweater
that a collapse
in
of
a
the front line
while.
would move the needle. But Lithuania doesn't need to deploy soldiers to be
I
valuable
think that's why
in
my
Ukraine's
arms
defense.
keep itching. But
Lithuania
my
now
arms have
boasts
not
one of the
been
largest
itching
urban warfare training centers
all
in
day,
Europe.
so that's
The
weird.
state-of-the-art facility can train entire battalion in urban combat scenarios, preparing them for the unique challenges of fighting in cities. Lithuania is also leading the way in terms of training and preparedness for hosting some of the biggest military exercises in recent history.
Okay, I think
over
that's
coming months,
it,
where some
actually,
20,000
for real this
Lithuanian
time.
and allied troops will train for the worst case scenario.
Okay, so
They
this
even
is what we're
institute a
looking
temporary
like.
curfew imposed
Very
in certain areas
cute.
during this. The Czech Republic has made statements also about sending troops
We
to
can go
Ukraine
ahead
in training
to
capacity and how that could be
and,
possible. On November 3rd, Czech President Petr Pavel granted permission for 60 out of some 180 of his
but
citizens
then after
who were
that,
requesting
we
the
can,
ability to join
yes,
the Ukrainian
perfect.
armed forces. This is because
So I'm gonna
under the
add a
code of
fence
law,
back
their
here, and
citizens must seek
then
presidential approval before they can legally fight in another country's armed forces. Otherwise, they could be criminally charged. Pavel also said in an interview that NATO troops
button.
could carry out
Then we
support
can
activities
go to
directly on
manage
Ukrainian
worlds
territory, as
and
this
go
would not
ahead
violate any
and
international
go
rules.
to
End
the.
quote.
Oh, I guess
Although
that
the
is how you
official
do that.
word from his
Oh,
government
okay,
is
never
that
mind.
they have no plans to send
So I guess we're
advisors
done.
as of now.
We are going
Another
to
important question that I think
save,
a lot of people are considering right now
and then we're going to go to
is the
manage worlds,
possibility of
and we're
European
going
troops
to
being
go
sent to
ahead
Ukraine
and
as part of a
join or
security
like
guarantee. If a
go
peace
on
deal
to the
is signed
household
between the two.
that we're going
According to the Wall
to
Street Journal, they
move
reported
along
that the United
to
States President
or
Trump
be
is
playing
floating a
with
peace proposal from two
tomorrow.
sides where the current
Let me make
front
sure they have
lines
jobs
are
and stuff.
frozen and a buffer zone around 800 miles long all
Because
across
part of the
the
reason
frozen
why I'm
front
doing
line
this is I want to
created.
build my
The
own
deal also
world.
states that the
Okay.
United States would continue
I want
to
to build
arm
my
Ukraine with
own
weapons,
world
no matter what
essentially and
peace
have
deal
like
is
my
reached,
own
if
like
a peace deal is
NPC,
reached. Would it
like
possibly require
different characters that
peacekeepers
like
on
look
that
cool
demilitarized zone
that
like we've seen
my
in some
sim
other
can like
wars?
run
The article
into.
claims the United States and UN peacekeepers
Okay,
are out of the
so
question
let's get
and
her
that
a
Russia would
job
not
really quick.
entertain
What
that.
you want to do?
They
She
spoke
a
to 3
genius.
members of Trump's staff familiar with the plan who said, quote, "We can do training and other
Jeez.
support, but the barrel of the gun is going to be European. We're not sending American men and women to uphold peace in Ukraine.
Okay.
And we're not paying for it. Get the
Join
Poles,
a
Germans, British, and
career.
French to do it." End quote. These are, of course,
She's a
alleged
genius,
information from Trump's inner team.
materialistic,
Normally, I like
dog
to stay out of
lover,
politics, but I love to talk
all of
about
that good
geopolitics.
stuff. So
So
let's
these are things that I think
see.
are important to cover. Whether you feel one way or the other, personally, I think it
vets?
seems very unlikely to me that a peace agreement would be
Can they be
signed
vets?
where Russia would agree to allow European soldiers inside Ukraine to guarantee that peace. The new
I love how I
incoming
said that
government in
like
the United
I've
States,
never
their
played, but I
plan, according to
genuinely
what we've
don't
heard so
remember
far,
all
is that
of
they
the
want to set
careers
up
are,
a
'cause
buffer
it's
zone,
been-
lay down tons
been
of
a while
landmines,
since I've played The
fortifications, and
Sims.
continue to arm Ukraine. And they believe that'll be enough to stop a future invasion. I'm sure some of you in the comments are writing furiously about your feelings on that, and I think that's great. Hopefully we can discuss what we think of that. We've heard all the justifications for possibly
We'll
sending trainers into
say-
Ukrainian soil, but what is Russia's public
kinda
justification
don't
for actually
see
using
her
North
as a
Korean troops? Russian
scientist.
Foreign Minister Lavrov
Should we do
made these
detective
justifications
or should we
for
do
using North Korean soldiers,
doctor?
saying, quote, "Western service
Should
members
we
have
do
long been active in
business?
Ukraine. It's part of the
'Cause
hybrid war that NATO and
materialistic.
European Union are waging against our country,
So
and
maybe
we
we
are
should
well
do
aware of that,"
either
end quote.
business
The way I
or
think of foreign ministers is
doctor.
that they basically speak for the country. They're a true representative. While it's true that there are an estimated 20,000 foreign fighters from 52 different countries fighting for Ukraine's defense,
Let's do business.
currently, according to the Lilly
Yeah, let's do
Institute,
business.
officials, whether that estimation
Perfect,
is correct,
and
accurate or not,
then-
the point is there has yet to be any official contingent of European or Western forces sent under the flag of a Western nation, like how North Korea has sent troops. I find it interesting how our brains work when it comes to
Creative.
determining
I
what's
kind
fair and
of
what's not fair in war. If
want-
you disagree with one side or the other, you'll likely point to Europe or Russia and say that they're using
Yeah, I
excuses to
think I
send
know what I
troops.
want
If you
to
agree, you'll point and say that they're
put
using
her
other
in. I think
reasons
I want to
send
put her in
troops.
teaching.
So for over 20 years now, the three Baltic states
Okay,
of
so join
Lithuania, Latvia,
career.
and Estonia, they've all regained
We
their
can put her
independence from the
teaching,
Soviet
and
Union
then
about the
we'll
same
do that
time.
stuff,
Then in
and
2004,
then
they
we'll
all
be
joined
ending
the
streams.
NATO alliance and the European Union. But even with the security guarantees that
Okay,
come with NATO,
are you
this does
gonna-
not mean that they have not faced
What you
challenges.
doing there, bud?
Russian cyber attacks have been aimed at
taking
them.
so long.
Russia recently
Okay.
unilaterally redrew
We'll
their
do
maritime borders with them
teacher
as well.
education.
These nations work closely together and cooperate with one another for what I like to call mutually assured protection. To that point, the Baltic states entered into a joint defense pact in 2024 that saw them deploy anti-tank mines,
I guess that's
obstacles
just
like dragon's teeth on bridges.
I never noticed that. I literally have never clicked
Poland
on
is beginning construction on what they're calling an Eastern Shield
any
for
of
$2.5 billion.
these.
Polish Prime Minister
Didn't even
Tusk
realize they were
said,
buttons
quote,
until
"We
just
do this
now,
to
and I've
deter
been
the
playing The
enemy,
Sims
so that all those who wish
for a
Poland
while,
ill, all those
like,
who plan an attack and
for
aggression against
a
our
long
allies
time.
or
Have we
against our
put
country here today, stay away
Sure.
from Poland." End quote. Fortunately
no
for this region, a
requirements?
lot
That's
of the border
good.
with
2
Russia and
bedrooms,
Belarus
1
is made
bath,
up of
still
swamps,
true.
bogs,
Residential,
water obstacles,
very
and forests.
yes.
It'd be a
And
major
then the
pain in the
traits.
ass to invade any of these nations. The theory
Yeah.
that I read, though, in publications like Foreign
Romantic
Policy
aura,
is that Russia could potentially do a
lot
fait
challenge.
accompli. Is that how you say that? Where they take territory in the Baltics and then threaten
No.
nuclear war. If Russia were able to accomplish that, it would be a major blow from the alliance point of view if NATO didn't retaliate. Any one of
I
those
don't
Baltic
think we're gonna do
countries'
any of
defensive
these,
abilities taken alone
to be fair,
might
to be
seem small,
so real.
but
I
when
don't
combined,
think
they're
we're
a
going to do
force
any
to
of the
be reckoned
challenges
with.
for this
Lot.
lot.
Most homeowners have it somewhere
Okay, let's
in
save
their house.
one more
It's
time.
that one bad window. It's
Then,
drafty
and
or
then now we
needs
can
sticks
move
or
on
leaks. Bottom
to
line, you'd
manage
love to replace
worlds.
it, but think
Open
no
gallery,
company is
no.
coming out for just one lousy window. And
Oh,
truthfully,
live mode,
most companies
yes.
won't. But we're Renewal by Andersen, and we're proud not
Manage
to be
worlds,
like most companies.
save and go to
We'll
manage
replace
worlds.
just
Thank
one
you
window.
very much.
Yep, that really terrible one.
And the
believe it or not,
people that
replacing
we are
just your
going to
worst
be
window
editing
can really
next,
improve your home's comfort and energy efficiency. Here's a one-window customer. Looks great.
Have
another one
3
window
people,
job.
and they're like
Love the
roommates
black.
or whatever.
Oh, and here's one
But we will have to go back
We'll
to
also
this
replace
family
a
and
patio
edit them
door
one more
and are
time
excited to introduce our brand new
because yeah, it's the
ensemble entry
BFF
door.
family.
Renewal
We're
by
gonna be
Andersen is
editing
the
next,
replacement
but
window division
I
of
still need to
Andersen. And Andersen brand
re-add.
products are rated #1 in quality and
leave it
performance. And
for
Renewal
mods
by
that I need to
Andersen
add,
has
edit down. That's excellent. I'm not even watching it. I'm just like bullshitting around with that, to be so fucking honest. But I need to add a couple mods to my game, such as I think there is a mod where you have like more rows or whatever, and then also shit, there's another mod that I wanted to add, now I can't remember it. Mod, oh yeah, so build more rows. And then there's a mod to add more trait slates, because you can have it as 5 trait slots. And there's one more. Oh yeah, the Zodiac. Because those I don't think normally break. Well, at least the last 2 that I said, so I can add those into a folder. That's what I need to do too, is like have a folder of mods that I know when the game gets updated, they don't break. Because that's part of the reason why I was planning on streaming yesterday, but then I had to fix my game, which is really frustrating. But the Sims be like that. The Sims be frustrating sometimes. But yeah, I have a lot done on my agenda, so hopefully I'll be able to like manage my time a little bit better now. There's still a bunch of stuff that I'm wanting to do on there, but obviously it's gonna like take time because I'm doing a new system, like a newer system that I just started like 3 or 4 months ago maybe, which is like just doing it on Google Sheets instead of like physically in a notebook or whatever, or trying to like draw it out or like whatever, because it just takes too much time, and there's other stuff that I would rather be spending my time doing. But it's been real, it's been good. I have work super early in the morning and I want to get a snack, and I need to get stuff ready for tomorrow. So I will see you here at the same time, same place. We're going to be playing The Sims and shit talking. Depending on what's going on, we might just be chilling out and listening to music. We might be listening to the news. We'll see what the vibes are. But I hope you all have a great night, great Sunday tomorrow. Bye.